You know, there are some moments in life that they shatter you. Moments where the world goes completely silent, and all you hear is the echo of a betrayal so deep, it changes everything. For me, that moment was hearing my own father yell, "Walk it off. Stop being a baby," as I lay motionless on the ground, my brothers smirking above me, and my mother accusing me of ruining his birthday. They had no idea that their cruel dismissal of my pain was about to land them all in handcuffs. My name is Audrey, and I'm 28 years old. I still remember that day like it was yesterday, the day my body went numb from the waist down. The day my brother, Jason, laughed at his own twisted prank while I lay paralyzed on the concrete. The day my parents proved, unequivocally, that they valued appearances over their own daughter's life. Growing up in the Matthews household was like walking on a minefield dressed up as a meticulously manicured lawn. From the outside, we were perfect. A beautiful suburban home in Massachusetts, a successful accountant father, an ideal homemaker mother, and 2 children who excelled. But beneath that gleaming surface, our family was a festering wound of emotional neglect. My father, Douglas Matthews, was a 6'2" tower of granite. A man who truly believed that showing emotion was a sign of weakness, a lesson hammered into him by his own military father. He passed that toxicity down to us, especially to Jason. "Audrey, you need to toughen up," was his constant mantra. Scraped knee, broken heart, even a legitimate illness. His response was always the same: minimize, dismiss, move on. My mother, Eleanor, wasn't much better. While she'd sometimes offer a fleeting glimpse of warmth, her true loyalty always lay with my father and Jason. She was a nervous woman, perpetually terrified of upsetting our household's delicate balance. If acknowledging my pain meant disrupting that carefully constructed facade, she would choose denial every single time. "Your brother would never complain about something like that," she'd sigh, comparing me to Jason in ways that cut deeper than any physical blow. Then there was Jason, my older brother by 3 years, now 31. He was the golden child, the son who could do no wrong. Athletic, charismatic, and chillingly manipulative, he'd learned early on that he could get away with anything as long as he maintained his angelic act for our parents. I remember when I was 7, and he pushed me off my bike, breaking my wrist. When I cried to our parents, Jason calmly claimed I was just clumsy. They believed him. At the hospital, my father lectured me about being more careful, while my mother fretted about the medical bills. Not once did they question Jason's story. This horrifying pattern repeated itself throughout our childhood, and even into adulthood. Jason tormented me with pranks that felt less like jokes and more like calculated acts of cruelty. My parents either ignored his behavior entirely, even worse, blamed me for provoking him. When I was 12, he locked me in our basement during a thunderstorm, knowing I was terrified of the dark. When I finally escaped, frantic and crying, they accused me of making up stories for attention. At 16, he sabotaged my science project the night before it was due, ensuring I failed. When I told my parents, they simply suggested I should have been more prepared. By the time I was 18, I fled. I moved out for college in another state, returning home only for major holidays. I built a life for myself as an elementary school teacher, found friends who genuinely cared, and started therapy to unpack the damage my upbringing had inflicted. But family ties are stubbornly resilient, even when they are toxic. Guilt and obligation always seem to drag me back into their orbit. Which is why, when my mother called, insisting I attend Jason's 31st birthday, I reluctantly agreed. It had been 6 months since I'd seen any of them, and a tiny, foolish part of me hoped that time and distance might have softened them. "It would mean so much to your brother if you came," she chirped, though I doubted Jason cared at all. "We're having a backyard barbecue, and your father's setting up the new pool deck. Everyone will be there." By everyone, she meant Jason's obnoxious, entitled friends. The thought made my stomach churn, but I was out of excuses. "Fine," I sighed, already regretting it. "I'll be there." "Wonderful. And please dress nicely. You know how important appearances are to your father." That comment stung. She knew I'd recently adopted a more casual style, trading their approved preppy outfits for clothes that actually made me feel comfortable. It was a tiny act of rebellion, but in the Matthews household, even the smallest deviation was a major transgression. As I hung up, I tried to mentally prepare. Get in, make small talk, give Jason a generic card with some cash, and leave. I could handle one afternoon of discomfort for months of peace. What I couldn't have known was that this birthday party would be the last time I would ever walk without assistance. That a casual afternoon would escalate to a point of no return. That my parents' refusal to take my pain seriously would cross the line from emotional neglect straight into criminal negligence. I packed an overnight bag, determined to stay in a hotel rather than my childhood bedroom. That small boundary felt crucial. I chose an outfit that would pass my father's inspection: dark jeans, a blue blouse, comfortable flats. As I drove the 2 hours to their house, I practiced my therapist's techniques: deep breathing, visualization, reminding myself I was an adult now, with the power to leave. But no amount of therapy could have prepared me for the catastrophe that was about to unfold. I arrived precisely at 2 p.m., timing my entrance to coincide with the start of the party. In a crowd, I could blend in, avoid becoming their sole target. The driveway was already packed with expensive SUVs and sports cars. Tyler's red Corvette was there, Jason's best friend and co-conspirator in my childhood torment. My mother greeted me at the door with an kiss and a quick once-over that told me my outfit had barely passed inspection. "Audrey, you made it. Everyone's out back. Your brother just opened his presents." Of course, they'd started without me. Another subtle reminder that my presence wasn't essential, merely tolerated. The living room was filled with expensive wrapping paper, remnants of an extravagant gift opening. I saw new golf clubs, designer clothes, and what looked like keys to a vehicle. "We got him that jet ski he's been wanting," my mother beamed, pointing to a photo on a box. "Your father's having it delivered next week." I nodded, feeling the familiar pang of inequity. For my 30th birthday, 6 months earlier, they'd sent a department store gift card. The disparity was nothing new, but it still stung. I placed my own gift, a simple card with $200, on the table and followed her to the backyard. The scene was exactly what I'd expected. About 30 people, mostly men in their early 30s, drinking beer and lounging on the newly constructed pool deck. My father was at the grill, flipping burgers with the precision of a suburban patriarch. Jason held court near the pool, surrounded by his usual entourage, beer in hand, gesticulating wildly, probably spinning some exaggerated tale of his own importance. He'd gained weight since I'd last seen him, his once athletic frame softened by too many nights of drinking. When he spotted me, he broke away from his group and approached, a veneer of artificial enthusiasm stretched across his face. "Little sis, you decided to grace us with your presence after all." His words were friendly enough, but the gleam in his eyes was anything but warm. He pulled me into a hug that was too tight, too aggressive, a physical reminder of the power dynamic that had defined our relationship for decades. "Happy birthday, Jason," I managed, extracting myself quickly. "The place looks great. Dad spent a fortune on that new deck," he said, gesturing to the gleaming Brazilian hardwood. "Custom built. Cost him nearly $20,000. Again, the unspoken comparison hung in the air. No expense spared for Jason's comfort and status, while my needs were always treated as burdens. I excused myself, opting for water instead of alcohol. I knew I needed to keep my wits about me. For the next hour, I mostly avoided my family, engaging in polite conversation with a few other uncomfortable spouses and girlfriends. We formed a quiet alliance of outsiders. But as the afternoon wore on and the alcohol flowed, the energy shifted. Jason and his friends grew louder, their behavior more obnoxious. They started reminiscing about high school, swapping stories that inevitably involved humiliating someone they deemed beneath them. And then, inevitably, Jason turned his attention to me. "Hey, remember that time we convinced Audrey that the neighbor's dog had rabies?" he called out, loud enough for everyone. She was so scared she refused to go outside for a week. His friends roared with laughter, and my cheeks burned with that familiar mixture of embarrassment and white-hot anger. I'd been 8 years old. The fear had been real. All the time we switched her shampoo with hair removal cream. Tyler added, slapping his knee as if this cruelty was the height of comedy. That had been when I was 14. I'd worn hats to school for weeks while my hair grew back in patches. My parents had told me to stop being so dramatic. I took a deep breath. That was it. I'd reached my limit. No obligation to family was worth this humiliation. I started to gather my things. But as I turned to leave, Jason intercepted me. Leaving so soon? The party's just getting started. His words were slurred, his eyes unfocused. He was drunk, which always made him more unpredictable, more dangerous. I have a long drive back, I said firmly, trying to step around him. He blocked my path. Come on, sis. Loosen up. Have a drink with us. For old time's sake. I knew this routine. The forced camaraderie that would inevitably lead to public humiliation. I'd fallen for it too many times. No thanks, Jason. I really need to go. His face hardened, the mask of friendliness slipping to reveal the cruelty beneath. Still the same uptight Audrey. Some things never change. I walked away, heading for the sliding glass door. Just grab my purse, say a quick goodbye to my parents, and escape. But fate, or perhaps Jason's malice, had other plans. To reach the house, I needed to cross a section of the new pool deck. As I stepped onto the wooden boards, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The surface felt strangely slick beneath my flats. I glanced down and saw a slight sheen, almost imperceptible unless you were looking for it. In that moment, I knew what was about to happen, but it was already too late. My foot slid forward, violently, throwing me off balance. My arms flailed, but the slipperiness was too complete, too deliberate. My other foot shot out from under me, and I felt my body falling backward. Time seemed to slow. I could see Jason and his friends watching, their expressions a sickening mix of anticipation and cruel amusement. I saw my father turning from the grill, my mother pausing in conversation. And then came the impact, not with the wooden deck as I'd expected, but with the sharp concrete lip of the pool. My lower back and head struck simultaneously. A double blow that sent a shooting white-hot pain up my spine and exploded like fireworks behind my eyes. I heard someone scream, and only later would I realize the sound had come from me. The world tilted and spun, colors blurring. When things finally stabilized, I was lying flat on my back, staring at the clear blue sky. The pain in my head was excruciating, but what terrified me more was what I couldn't feel. Anything below my waist. Help! I gasped, my voice barely audible. The impact had knocked the wind out of me. Please help me. I can't feel my legs. The first face that appeared was Jason's. He was looming over me, and to my horror, he was smiling. Nice pratfall, sis. Very dramatic. He turned to his friends. She always was a theater kid. I tried to move, to sit up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. My arms worked, but when I attempted to shift my legs, there was nothing. No response, no sensation, just a terrifying void. I'm serious, I said, my voice stronger now, edged with panic. Something is wrong. I can't move my legs. I think I hit my back. Jason rolled his eyes, still convinced this was a performance. Come on, get up. You're embarrassing yourself. I can't get up. I was crying now, tears of pain and fear streaming down my face. Please call an ambulance. I think I'm really hurt. By this point, a small crowd had gathered. I saw curiosity and discomfort on their faces, but no one was moving to help. They were taking their cues from Jason, assuming this was just another family drama playing out. My father pushed through the onlookers, his face a mask of irritation. What's going on here? Audrey? Why are you on the ground? Dad! I sobbed, relief washing over me. Surely he would take this seriously. I slipped and fell. I hit my back on the pool edge. I can't feel my legs. I need to go to the hospital. I expected concern, urgency, immediate action. What I got instead was a dismissive scoff. For God's sake, Audrey, the deck is perfectly safe. I just had it installed by professionals. He gestured impatiently. Walk it off. Stop being a baby. You're making a scene at your brother's party. The words hit me like a physical blow. Even now, when I was literally unable to move, my pain was being dismissed. My experience invalidated. Douglas, maybe we should help her up, my mother suggested, appearing at his side. But her concern wasn't for my well-being. People are watching. I can't get up. I repeated, my voice rising with desperation. I need an ambulance. Please, Mom, Dad, I'm begging you. Something is seriously wrong. My mother knelt beside me, her voice lowered to an angry whisper. Audrey Matthews, that is enough. You've always been jealous of your brother's attention, but this is taking things too far. You're ruining his birthday party with this performance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The pain in my back was intensifying, radiating outward in waves that made it difficult to concentrate. My head throbbed where it had struck the concrete, and I was starting to feel nauseated. I think I'm going to be sick, I moaned, turning my head to the side. She's probably drunk, I heard Jason tell someone. Classic Audrey. Can't handle her alcohol. I hadn't had a single drink all day, but facts had never mattered in my family's narrative about me. The sun beat down on my face, making the nausea worse. I was sweating profusely, and a strange tingling had started in my fingertips. I knew these were bad signs. Please, I whispered, no longer having the energy to shout. I need help. My father had walked away, returning to the grill as if nothing was happening. My mother was making excuses to the guests, telling them I was prone to episodes, and they should continue enjoying the party. Jason had lost interest, moving back to his friends, who were now loudly discussing plans for the jet ski. I was alone, immobile, in agony, surrounded by people who were choosing to ignore my suffering. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. Then, from the edge of my fading consciousness, I heard a new voice. Firm, authoritative, female. Excuse me, I'm a nurse. Let me through, please. The crowd parted, and a woman I didn't recognize knelt beside me. She had kind eyes and capable hands that immediately went to my wrist, checking my pulse. Hi there, I'm Rachel. I work in the ER at Massachusetts General. Can you tell me your name? Audrey, I managed through chattering teeth. I was cold now, despite the summer heat. Okay, Audrey, I need you to stay very still. Can you tell me what happened? I explained the fall, the impact, the immediate loss of sensation. Rachel's expression remained neutral, but I could see concern in her eyes. She leaned closer and spoke quietly. I'm going to check a few things, but I don't want you to move at all. Okay. She gently pressed her fingers against various points on my legs, asking if I could feel the pressure. I couldn't. She asked me to wiggle my toes. Nothing happened. I'm calling an ambulance, she announced, pulling out her phone. She doesn't need an ambulance, my mother protested, suddenly reappearing. She just needs to get up and stop making a fuss. Rachel fixed my mother with a level stare. Your daughter has signs consistent with a spinal cord injury. Moving her could cause permanent damage. She needs emergency medical attention immediately. For the first time, a flicker of real concern crossed my mother's face. Spinal cord injury? That's impossible. She just slipped. Falls are one of the most common causes of spinal injuries, Rachel replied, already dialing 911. And from what I can see, she hit the concrete edge quite hard. As Rachel spoke with the dispatcher, describing my condition, I saw my father approaching. His expression had shifted from annoyance to apprehension. What's all this about an ambulance? He demanded. Rachel, still on the phone, held up a hand to silence him. After giving the dispatcher the necessary information, she turned to my father. Sir, your daughter has potentially suffered a serious spinal injury. The paramedics will be here in about 10 minutes. Until then, it is absolutely crucial that she not be moved. My father's face paled. For the first time, I think he was beginning to realize this wasn't an act. This was real. How did this happen? He asked, looking around as if searching for someone to blame. Through the fog of pain and fear, I managed to speak. The deck was slippery, like it had oil or something on it. My father's eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. I just had it sealed yesterday. It shouldn't be slippery at all. But Rachel, ever observant, was already examining the wooden boards near where I had fallen. She touched the surface, then rubbed her fingers together. "This isn't water," she said, her voice hardening. "This feels like some kind of lubricant." All eyes turned to Jason, who had wandered back over. His flushed, alcohol-soaked face suddenly drained of color. "It was just a joke," he muttered, not meeting anyone's gaze. "Just a little prank. I put some of Dad's deck oil on a few boards. I thought she'd slip a little and maybe fall in the pool. I didn't think," he trailed off, the implications finally dawning on him. The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, as I lay immobile, I saw the truth of my family reflected in their faces. The casual cruelty, the willful blindness to the harm they caused, the reflexive protection of Jason at all costs. But this time, there would be consequences they couldn't ignore. In the distance, I heard sirens. The wailing sirens grew louder, cutting through the stunned silence. Rachel remained by my side, monitoring me. "Try to stay calm," she said softly. "Help is almost here. Just focus on your breathing." I was trying, but panic kept threatening to overwhelm me. The numbness in my lower body was terrifying. Each breath sent new waves of pain through my back and head, and the nausea intensified. The party guests had begun to disperse, murmuring among themselves. Some were already leaving, not wanting to be involved. Others watched from a distance, expressions a mixture of morbid curiosity and discomfort. My mother hovered nearby, her earlier dismissiveness replaced by a nervous energy. She kept straightening her clothes, touching her hair, small gestures that betrayed her anxiety about how this would appear. "Do you really think this is necessary?" she asked Rachel. "Maybe we could just take her to urgent care ourselves." Rachel's response was firm. "Absolutely not. She needs proper immobilization and transport. Any improper movement could worsen a spinal injury." My father had gone to the front to direct the paramedics, while Jason stood frozen several feet away, the reality of what he had done finally seeming to sink in. The paramedics arrived with remarkable efficiency, 2 women and a man, wheeling a stretcher. Rachel immediately briefed them. The lead paramedic, Sarah, knelt beside me. "Hello, Audrey. I'm Sarah. We're going to take good care of you. Can you tell me where the pain is worst?" "My lower back," I managed, "and my head, but I can't feel anything below my waist." Sarah nodded, her expression professional but kind. "We're going to put a cervical collar on you to stabilize your neck, and then we'll carefully log roll you onto a backboard. It's important that you don't try to help us move you. Okay? Just stay as still as possible." As they worked, Sarah asked about the fall. Rachel filled in details. Then Sarah asked a question that changed everything. "Was the surface where you fell naturally slippery, or was there something on it?" Before I could answer, Rachel spoke up. "There appears to be some kind of oil or lubricant on the deck boards. I believe it was placed there deliberately." Sarah paused, looking up sharply. "Deliberately? Can you elaborate?" "Her brother admitted to putting deck oil on the boards as a prank," Rachel said, her voice level but with an undercurrent of anger. "He intended for her to slip." Sarah and the other paramedics exchanged glances. Then Sarah turned to look at Jason. "Is that accurate? Did you intentionally create a slipping hazard that caused this injury?" Jason shifted uncomfortably. "It was just supposed to be a joke. I didn't think she'd get hurt like this." Sarah's expression hardened. She turned to her colleague. "Mike, can you check the deck surface and document what you find, please?" Mike nodded, moving to examine the area, taking photos, and collecting a sample. Meanwhile, the paramedics methodically immobilized me. They placed a rigid collar around my neck, then carefully positioned themselves to roll me as a unit onto the backboard. "On my count," Sarah instructed. 1, 2, 3. They moved me with practiced precision, but despite their care, the movement sent fresh agony through my body. I cried out, unable to suppress the sound. "I know it hurts," Sarah said sympathetically. "We'll give you something for the pain as soon as we have you secured." Once I was strapped to the backboard, they transferred me to the stretcher and began attaching monitoring equipment. Sarah placed an oxygen mask over my face and inserted in 4-line. Your blood pressure is quite low, she noted, frowning at the monitor. And your heart rate is elevated. We need to get you to the hospital right away. My mother finally seemed to grasp the severity. Is she going to be all right? She asked, her voice small. Sarah didn't offer false reassurance. She has signs consistent with a significant spinal injury. The sooner we get her to a trauma center, the better her chances for recovery. As they prepared to move me, Mike returned. He spoke quietly to Sarah, showing her something on his camera screen. Her expression grew even more serious. Based on what I'm seeing here and the circumstances described, I'm going to request police assistance, she announced. Police? My father sputtered, returning. Surely that's not necessary. This was just an unfortunate accident. Sarah fixed him with a level gaze. So, deliberately creating a hazardous condition that results in serious injury is not just an accident. Additionally, I understand there was a delay in seeking medical attention for your daughter, despite her reporting loss of sensation, which is a medical emergency. My father's face flushed with anger. Now, wait just a minute. You can't come into my home and make accusations like that. Dad, I said weakly from behind the oxygen mask. Please, just let them help me. For once, he fell silent. Sarah made a call on her radio, requesting police presence. Then she turned back to me. We're going to move you to the ambulance now. The ride might be uncomfortable, but we'll do everything we can to keep you stable. As they wheeled me through the house and out to the waiting ambulance, I caught a final glimpse of my family. My father arguing with Mike, gesticulating angrily. My mother standing with her arms wrapped around herself, looking lost. And Jason, still rooted to the same spot, watching as the consequences of his lifelong cruelty finally caught up with him. The last thing I saw before the ambulance doors closed was a police cruiser pulling into the driveway, lights flashing but siren silent. In that moment, despite the pain and fear, I felt a strange sense of validation. For the first time in my life, someone was taking my suffering seriously. The ambulance pulled away, carrying me toward an uncertain future, but also away from the toxic environment that had caused me so much pain. As the medication they administered began to take effect, dulling the worst of the physical agony, I closed my eyes and surrendered to unconsciousness. I awoke to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors and the antiseptic smell that seems universal to all medical facilities. For a moment, I was disoriented. Then the memories came flooding back. The fall, the numbness, the paramedics, the police. A nurse noticed I was awake. Welcome back, Audrey. I'm Carlos. You at Massachusetts General Hospital. Do you remember what happened? I fell, I said, my voice raspy. At my brother's birthday party. I can't feel my legs. Carlos nodded, making a note. That's right. You've been in and out of consciousness for about 12 hours. The doctor will be in shortly to discuss your condition. Can I get you some water? I nodded gratefully. Even that simple movement caused pain to flare in my back. What's wrong with me? I asked, fear making my voice tremble. Can I still not move my legs? Carlos's expression was compassionate but professional. The doctor will explain everything. She should be here any minute. Try to stay calm. As if on cue, a woman in a white coat entered. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. Good morning, Audrey. I'm Dr. Martinez, the neurosurgeon overseeing your care. How are you feeling? Scared, I admitted. And in pain. What happened to me? Why can't I feel my legs? Dr. Martinez pulled up a chair. When you fell, you suffered what we call an incomplete spinal cord injury at the T12L1 section in your lower back. The impact fractured 2 vertebrae and caused significant compression of your spinal cord. She showed me MRI images, pointing out the damage. We performed emergency surgery to remove bone fragments and reduce the pressure. We also stabilized your spine with rods and screws. Will I walk again? I asked, the question that had been terrifying me. Dr. Martinez didn't offer false hope, but neither did she extinguish it entirely. Spinal cord injuries are complex, and outcomes can vary widely. The fact that yours is an incomplete injury is actually positive news. It means the spinal cord wasn't completely severed. She explained that over the coming weeks, we'd get a clearer picture of how much function I might recover. Some patients regained significant mobility, others more limited improvement. A lot will depend on your individual healing process and how diligently you work with physical therapy. So, I might be paralyzed forever. The words felt surreal. I wouldn't use the term forever at this stage, Dr. Martinez replied carefully. But yes, you are currently experiencing paraplegia, which is paralysis affecting the lower limbs. We'll work with you to maximize whatever recovery is possible, but you should be prepared for the possibility of long-term mobility challenges. The news hit me like a physical blow. I had entered my brother's birthday party a healthy 28-year-old woman, and I was leaving it with a life-altering disability, all because of a prank, and my family's refusal to take my pain seriously. There's something else we need to discuss, Dr. Martinez said, her tone shifting. The circumstances of your injury have prompted an investigation. There are 2 police officers waiting to speak with you when you feel up to it. I closed my eyes briefly. My brother put oil on the deck. He admitted it. He wanted me to slip as a joke. Dr. Martinez nodded. That's consistent with the information we received from the paramedics. And there seems to be some concern about the delay in seeking medical attention for you after the injury occurred. My parents didn't believe I was really hurt, I said, the familiar pain of their dismissal washing over me again. They told me to walk it off. They accused me of being dramatic and trying to ruin Jason's party. A flash of something, anger, perhaps, crossed Dr. Martinez's professional demeanor. In cases of suspected spinal cord injury, immediate immobilization and medical attention are crucial. Delays can significantly worsen the outcome. Are you saying that if they had called an ambulance right away, I might not be paralyzed? The implications were almost too much to bear. It's impossible to say with certainty, she replied carefully. But yes, in general, the sooner a spinal cord injury is treated, the better the prognosis. Every minute counts. Tears spilled down my cheeks. The injury itself was devastating enough, but knowing it might have been less severe if my family had simply believed me was an additional layer of betrayal I was not prepared for. Dr. Martinez gave me a moment to process, then asked, "Do you feel up to speaking with the police now, or would you prefer to rest first?" "I'll talk to them," I decided. "I want them to know what happened." She nodded and left to get the officers. Carla stayed, offering tissues for my tears. The police officers who entered were both women, which somehow made me feel safer. They introduced themselves as Detective Sullivan and Officer Chen. "We understand this is difficult," Detective Sullivan said. "But we need to ask you some questions about what happened yesterday." I recounted the events as clearly as I could, from arriving at the party to my family's callous response. "So, to be clear," Detective Sullivan clarified, "after you fell and reported that you couldn't feel or move your legs, no one called for medical assistance." "Not until Rachel, the nurse who was at the party, intervened," I confirmed. "That was at least 15 or 20 minutes after my fall. My father told me to walk it off, and my mother accused me of trying to ruin Jason's birthday." Officer Chen, who had been taking notes, looked up, "And your brother admitted to putting oil on the deck?" "Yes. He said it was supposed to be a prank. He thought I'd slip and fall into the pool. He didn't think I'd hit the concrete edge." The officers exchanged glances. "We should inform you," Detective Sullivan said, "that we have already taken statements from several witnesses at the scene, including the nurse, Rachel Cooper, and the paramedics who transported you. We have also collected evidence from the deck, which confirmed the presence of deck oil in the area where you fell." She paused before continuing. "Your brother, Jason Matthews, was taken into custody last night on charges of reckless endangerment, resulting in serious bodily harm. Your parents, Douglas and Eleanor Matthews, are currently being investigated for negligence and failure to provide necessary medical assistance." The news stunned me. As much as my family had hurt me, I had never imagined them facing criminal charges. They could go to jail. I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That will be up to the district attorney and ultimately the courts," Detective Sullivan replied. "But yes, these are serious charges, especially given the severity of your injuries." They asked a few more questions, thanked me, and left, promising to keep me updated. After they were gone, I lay in the hospital bed, trying to process everything. The physical reality of my injury was overwhelming enough, but the legal and emotional implications were equally staggering. No one from my family had called or visited. I wondered if they were legally prevented, or if they were simply continuing their lifelong pattern of avoiding accountability. As evening fell, a hospital social worker named Marcus came to see me. He explained he would help coordinate my care, including rehabilitation and resources for adjusting to life with a spinal cord injury. "You're looking at a significant recovery period," he told me gently. "After you're stable enough to leave acute care, you'll likely need to spend several weeks in an inpatient rehabilitation facility, followed by ongoing outpatient therapy." "I live alone," I said, the practical implications suddenly hitting me. "My apartment has stairs. I teach elementary school, which means being on my feet all day." Marcus nodded. "These are all challenges we'll help you navigate. There are resources for home modifications, vocational rehabilitation, and disability benefits." It's a lot to take in right now, I know. Indeed it was. In the space of 24 hours, every aspect of my life had been upended. My body, my home, my career, my family relationships, all transformed in ways I was only beginning to comprehend. That night, alone in my hospital room, I cried for everything I had lost and everything that now lay uncertain before me. But beneath the grief and fear, a small spark of determination began to glow. I had survived my family's lifelong emotional abuse. Somehow, I would survive this, too. And for the first time, they would face consequences for their actions. By the way, if you're still with me, make sure to hit subscribe. More unbelievable stories are coming. The weeks following my injury passed in a blur of medical procedures, pain management, and the first tentative steps toward rehabilitation. I remained in the hospital for 14 days, during which time the full extent of my injury became clearer. Dr. Martinez explained that while the surgery had been successful in stabilizing my spine, there was significant damage that would take time to heal, if it healed at all. "You have what we call an HSC classification," she told me. "This means you have preserved some motor function below the level of injury, but it's not strong enough to be functional. You also have some sensory preservation, which is a positive sign." I had begun to regain some sensation in my thighs and occasional tingling in my lower legs, which the medical team considered encouraging. However, I still had no voluntary movement below my knees and minimal strength in my hip and thigh muscles. The physical aspects of recovery were challenging enough, but the legal proceedings added another layer of complexity. 10 days after my injury, I received a visit from a woman named Laura Jensen, an assistant district attorney. "The police investigation into your case has been completed," she informed me. "Based on the evidence collected and witness statements, we have filed formal charges against your brother and parents." Jason was facing a felony charge of reckless endangerment, resulting in serious bodily injury, which carried a potential sentence of up to 10 years in prison. My parents were charged with criminal negligence and failure to provide necessary medical assistance, which could result in up to 5 years of incarceration if convicted. "Of course, these are the maximum penalties," Laura explained. "Actual sentences would depend on many factors, including prior criminal history, which none of them have, and whether they accept responsibility by pleading guilty." She also informed me that I had the right to file a civil lawsuit for damages, regardless of the criminal outcome. "Medical expenses for spinal cord injuries can run into the millions over a lifetime," she said. "Not to mention lost wages, pain and suffering, home modifications, specialized equipment, and ongoing care needs." It was overwhelming to think about. Part of me wanted nothing more than to cut all ties with my family and focus on recovery. But the practical reality was that I was facing enormous financial challenges as a result of their actions. Laura put me in touch with Michael Greenberg, a personal injury attorney specializing in spinal cord injury cases. He visited me the next day. "Your case is strong," he told me after reviewing the reports. "The liability is clear, especially with your brother's admission. Your parents' homeowner's insurance will likely cover some damages, but for the full compensation you deserve, we would need to go after their personal assets as well." The thought made me uncomfortable. Despite everything, these were still my parents. But as Michael gently pointed out, my new reality included extensive medical bills, potential lifelong care needs, and a significantly altered earning capacity. This isn't about revenge, he assured me. It's about ensuring you have the resources you need to live as full and independent a life as possible. I agreed to let him file the lawsuit, a decision that felt both necessary and heartbreaking. Meanwhile, my physical recovery continued. After 2 weeks in acute care, I was transferred to a specialized spinal cord injury rehabilitation center. It was modern and well-equipped, with a team of physical therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, and nurses, all focused on helping patients like me adjust. My primary physical therapist, David, combined unwavering optimism with pragmatic realism. Our goal is to maximize whatever return of function you experience, he explained. But equally important is learning to be as independent as possible with the function you have right now. The days at the center fell into a demanding routine. Mornings began with 2 hours of physical therapy, focusing on strengthening existing muscles and learning transfer techniques to move from bed to wheelchair. Afternoons included occupational therapy, where I learned adaptive techniques for daily living, from dressing myself to cooking from a seated position. There were group sessions, too, where I met other people with spinal cord injuries at various stages of recovery. Some had been injured years ago, others were newly injured, like me. One of these patients was Tara, who'd sustained a similar injury in a car accident 2 years earlier. She used leg braces and forearm crutches for short distances, but relied on a wheelchair for daily mobility. It gets easier, she told me one evening. Not the physical stuff necessarily, though that does improve with time. I mean, the emotional adjustment. Right now, everything in your life is defined by your injury. Eventually, it becomes just one aspect of who you are, not your entire identity. Her words gave me hope during the darkest moments, when the future seemed impossibly bleak. There were good days, when I made progress, managing to stand between parallel bars with the support of leg braces, or experiencing new flickers of sensation in my feet. There were also setbacks, infections that delayed therapy, moments of despair when the magnitude of what I had lost overwhelmed me. Throughout this time, I received no contact from my family. My attorney informed me that their legal counsel had instructed them not to communicate with me due to the pending cases. Part of me was relieved. Another part felt the absence as yet another abandonment. Friends and colleagues from the elementary school where I taught stepped in to fill the void. They organized visitors, brought home-cooked meals, and set up a fundraising campaign to help with expenses not covered by insurance. They became my chosen family. 3 months after my injury, the criminal cases against my biological family moved toward resolution. Jason accepted a plea deal, admitting to felony reckless endangerment in exchange for a 5-year sentence, with 2 years in prison and 3 on probation. My parents also took plea agreements, receiving 2 years of probation and 400 hours of community service each, along with mandatory counseling. The civil case took longer. Michael, my attorney, deposed each family member, collecting their sworn testimony. The process was grueling, but necessary, forcing them to acknowledge under oath the reality of what they had done. 6 months after filing the lawsuit, we reached a settlement. My parents' homeowners insurance paid its maximum liability of $1 million. Additionally, my parents agreed to sell their house and liquidate a significant portion of their retirement savings to create a trust fund of an additional $2 million for my ongoing care needs. It was a substantial sum, enough to cover my immediate medical expenses, modifications to make my apartment accessible, and provide a financial cushion as I figured out my professional future. But no amount of money could restore what I had lost, both physically and emotionally. By the 8-month mark, I had made what my medical team considered remarkable progress. I had regained some function in my leg muscles, enough that with specialized braces and a walker, I could take short, laboured steps. It wasn't true walking, not the easy, unconscious movement I had once taken for granted, but it was more than many with similar injuries ever achieved. I was discharged from inpatient rehabilitation, continuing with outpatient therapy 3 times a week. I moved back to my apartment, which had been modified with ramps, wider doorways, and an accessible bathroom. A part-time caregiver helped with tasks I couldn't yet manage independently. I also began the process of reimagining my professional life. While returning to classroom teaching wasn't feasible, the school district offered me a position as a curriculum specialist, a role I could perform largely from home. Throughout this period of physical recovery and practical adjustment, I was also engaged in another kind of healing, working with a therapist named Claire, who specialized in trauma and family dynamics. What happened to you wasn't just a physical injury, Claire pointed out. It was the culmination of a lifetime of emotional abuse and neglect. The paralysis in your legs is visible, but there are other invisible wounds that need healing, too. With her guidance, I began to process not just the trauma of the injury itself, but the deeper patterns of family dysfunction that had made it possible. The constant invalidation of my experiences, the golden child and scapegoat dynamic between Jason and me, the way my parents had consistently prioritized appearances over my well-being. Your family failed you in the most fundamental way, Claire said. They had one job, to protect you and care for you. Instead, they caused you harm and then refused to acknowledge it. Acknowledging this truth was painful, but ultimately liberating. It allowed me to see that my injury, devastating as it was, had also freed me from the toxic family system that had caused me so much suffering throughout my life. Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them? Claire asked during one session. I considered the question carefully. I don't know. Part of me thinks there's no coming back from this. Another part wonders if these legal consequences might finally force them to confront the reality of their behavior. Either way, she said, your healing doesn't depend on their acknowledgement or changes. It's something you do for yourself. And slowly, painstakingly, that's what I began to do. Heal. Not just my body, but my sense of self, my understanding of what family should be, and what relationships I deserved in my life. As I approached the 1-year anniversary of my injury, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Jason, writing from prison. The envelope sat unopened on my kitchen table for 3 days before I found the courage to read it. Inside was a lengthy, handwritten apology, the first genuine one I had ever received from my brother. He wrote about the therapy he was undergoing in prison, how he was finally confronting the person he had been and the harm he had caused. He made no excuses for his behavior and asked for nothing in return, not even forgiveness. I understand if you never want to hear from me again, he wrote. I wouldn't blame you, but I wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry for the pain I have caused you. Not just on that day, but throughout our lives. You deserved so much better. The letter left me with complicated feelings. It seemed sincere, but I wasn't ready to let Jason back into my life, if I ever would be. Still, there was a certain closure in having my experiences finally acknowledged by someone who had been there. My parents never reached out directly, though I heard through mutual acquaintances that they had moved to Florida, starting over in a smaller house with whatever assets they had managed to retain after the settlement. They had, apparently, told a sanitized version of events to their new community, painting themselves as devoted parents supporting their daughter through a tragic accident. But their narrative no longer held power over me. I had learned that my truth did not require their acknowledgement to be valid. My pain did not need their recognition to be real. This has been, perhaps, the most profound lesson of my journey, that validation must ultimately come from within. For someone raised to doubt her own experiences, to question her own pain, this realization has been revolutionary. I have also learned about the true meaning of family, that it is not necessarily defined by blood or legal ties, but by who shows up when you are at your most vulnerable, by who stays when staying gets difficult, by who sees your pain and responds with compassion rather than dismissal. My chosen family has grown over these 2 years. It includes Sarah, the paramedic who first recognized the seriousness of my injury, Rachel, the nurse who intervened when no one else would, David, my physical therapist who pushed me to achieve more than I thought possible, Claire, who helped me navigate the emotional landscape of trauma and recovery, and now Thomas, a physical therapist specializing in neurological injuries, who sees me for who I am. With him, I am learning what healthy love feels like, built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine care. Last month, I completed my master's degree in educational psychology, specializing in trauma-informed teaching practices. Next fall, I will begin a new position as a consultant for the school district, training educators to recognize and support children experiencing various forms of trauma, including family dysfunction. It feels like a way of honoring my own journey while creating meaning from the pain I have experienced. Perhaps that is the ultimate form of healing, not erasing the wound, but transforming it into something that serves a purpose greater than oneself. My paralysis will always be part of my story, as will the family dynamics that contributed to it. But neither defines the entirety of who I am or what my life can mean. Sometimes, when I'm with Thomas, or surrounded by friends, laughing and fully present, I realize with a start that I am happy, not despite what happened, but in a way that incorporates it into a larger narrative of resilience and growth. Other times, usually late at night when pain keeps me awake, I still struggle with anger and grief for what was taken from me. The physical abilities I lost, the family relationships that, even if toxic, represented my primary attachments for 28 years, the sense of safety in the world that may never fully return. But even in those dark moments, I'm no longer alone with my pain. I have learned to reach out, to allow myself to be vulnerable with those who have earned my trust, to accept help without shame, to acknowledge my limitations without being defined by them. If there is wisdom to be gained from trauma, perhaps it is this, that our wounds shape us, but they need not determine us. That even the deepest betrayals can become catalysts for profound transformation. That sometimes it takes being broken to discover just how much strength we contain. I don't know what the future holds. My doctors say I may continue to see small improvements in function for up to 5 years post-injury, though the most significant gains typically occur in the first 2 years. I may walk more easily someday, or I may not. Either way, I will continue to build a life that accommodates my reality while stretching the boundaries of what seems possible. What I do know is that I am no longer the woman who entered that birthday party 2 years ago, desperate for approval from people incapable of truly seeing me. I am someone new, forged in the crucible of trauma and recovery, stronger in the broken places, as Hemingway once wrote. More authentic, more compassionate, more aware of both my vulnerability and my power. And that, perhaps, is the most unexpected gift to emerge from this ordeal. The discovery of a self worth fighting for, worth believing in, worth loving. If you're watching this and find yourself in a situation where your pain is dismissed, where your reality is denied by those who should protect you, please know that you deserve better. Your experiences are valid. Your suffering matters, and there are people in this world who will see you truly if you can find the courage to reach beyond those who refuse to. Have you ever had your pain dismissed by someone who should have believed you? How did you find the strength to trust yourself when others wouldn't? Tell me what you think. I really want to know. Thanks for watching. Take care.